Dana White's Contender Series Week 2. I was calling for a lot of finishes going into last week's episode. It was the season opener. This show has consistently delivered in that manner. All right, when you think about week to week, the action that we see. Okay, last week's episode was an outlier. People bring up the Joe Pfeiffer card that we saw in the past, but those types of events are rare, and they're not going to make me shy away from targeting a lot of finishes here. The format of this show pushes these young, hungry fighters to deliver in that manner. Look, if you don't bring the fight, it doesn't matter if you get your hand raised. Dana White will not sign you. We saw this last week. And I would also say that I think last week's episode wasn't as bad as it was made to seem. Right, Ty Miller looked pretty damn good. Our only official target on the card. Remember, guys, we will have at least one official target on each and every one of these events. I thought Ty Miller looked good. His boxing is sharp. He's only 25 years old. He has a promising future. And then Sursakayev, the fighter that had the only finish on the card, he gets signed by the UFC and then gets a 4-day notice to fight on that UFC 319 card, where he then went out there and was fun to watch. He got the finish, a little bit of a slow start. I don't know if slow start's the right term, but the fight played out a little bit more competitively than some people thought it would have in the first round. A lot of people had him dropping that round as he got hurt at the end of it, but he went in there and he is already 1-0 in the UFC, and he is a fighter that's on all of our radars, right? One of the training partners of Chimaev. And guys, before we jump into this episode, of course, I'm going to mention, I know my boy DDP did not come through. Why do you guys think I'm wearing all black, man? I'm in mourning right now. That was a tough one for me to watch there, and unfortunately Chimaev's wrestling, or fortunately if you guys backed him, I mean, it was just so dominant. And if you weren't looking at that fight from a betting perspective and you were just looking at it from an entertainment standpoint, it wasn't as exciting, but you have to be impressed with what you were seeing from Chimaev. I mean, I think that he is proving to be one of the most dominant fighters that the game has ever seen. Now we'll move forward and jump into the card, but if you can, real quick, please guys, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. You guys can expect a breakdown for every single Dana White's Contender Series episode all throughout the season, so it's much appreciated, guys. Smash those buttons for me there. Let's go jump into the first fight.
The teller.
We'll kick this thing off in the featherweight division, where we have Little T, Tommy Cuozzi. He's taking on Ramiro Jimenez. And I'll be honest with you guys, neither of these fighters really stand out to me too much. I mean, these aren't blue chip prospects. I know both of them are undefeated, but that doesn't really describe what you're seeing when you dive into who they are. Cuozzi actually kicked off his professional career after going 0-4 to finish off his amateur career. All right, so this is not a fighter that's never tasted defeat or anything like that. He trains at a small gym that's ran by his parents, I believe, and there's not a lot of big names over there. That's kind of always a red flag. You got to be truly special to have a lot of success going that route, right? You could think of a fighter like Elijah Smith. Okay, he's an absolute stud. He trains at a smaller gym, and obviously his dad has a major influence on him, but his dad was a former UFC fighter, right? When you're fighting at a family gym, I would say typically that's a negative. Now, both of these fighters have proven to be very aggressive and have proven to be fight finishers thus far in their professional careers. You take a look at Cuozzi, he's finished all 8 of his victories, 7 of them by KO, 1 via sub. But there's some red flags when you're breaking on tape on him. His grappling has holes in it, and we've seen that dating back to when he was an amateur, which he was subbed a couple times. And then even in those decision losses, we've seen him on his back a bit, and that translated even to him as a pro. Right, you take a look at some of his professional fights, and we've seen him on his back. He's comfortable to come at you and doesn't really mind flopping to his back. He feels confident that he can get up or use his jiu-jitsu to reverse, and I think that that's going to catch up with him quite a bit if he doesn't continue to improve there. I could see a fighter like Jimenez, who has shown some grappling abilities. We saw him pull off a Kimura as of recently, and in fact, you take a look at his last 3 fights, they all happened in one night over at Combate. Right. And another thing you have to understand with Jimenez is that he hasn't fought in about 2 years. He's very young. He's 26 years old. I expect we see massive improvement in his skill set with the layoff. I would definitely imagine that he's been putting in work at the gym, and that we'll see a much upgraded version of him. And I think that he's shown just a little bit more so. But with that being said, there's holes in his game that we've seen in the past as well. And some of those fights that he's gone out there and finished strongly, we've seen him dropped. I've seen him get hit with a big shot on the feet and put on his butt. Okay, so he's shown some vulnerabilities there as well. Maybe Cuozzi can land on the feet using some of the striking abilities that he has. You guys know I got to kick this episode with calling a finish, a KO. I'm going to say that Jimenez ends up being the fighter that lands heavy, but I expect a high pace to this fight. I think Dana White is looking to make a statement in this episode. He's not going to allow back-to-back episodes to kick this season off, play out in a boring fashion. So these fighters are going to understand that they have to go out there and deliver. And I just don't think it's out of the realm. We see somebody get hurt and finished up in this fight. And we may see Jimenez hurt Cuozzi and then pull off a sub. The sub's not out of the realm either. We've seen him submitted before. So there's a couple ways you can go with how this fight will end. But I'll say that Jimenez gets the finish. He's the fighter that will get the finish. And I think that it's warranted that he's the favorite here. We'll slide over to the betting odds where we see Cuozzi is right around a plus 280 underdog. Right, the comeback on Jimenez is right around a minus 320. So he's a big time favorite here. Could be a little bit of a reach, but I'll tell you what, right? Both these fighters coming off quite a bit of first round finishes. All right, I expect to see a clash. I think that we see an early finish. Maybe take a look at what you could see on the unders for this fight. All in all, I think that Jimenez will be the fighter that gets that finish in the first round or under the 1.5 there. I think Jimenez gets an earlier finish, but it's not out of the realm that Cuozzi can be in this fight. As mentioned earlier, I seen Jimenez touched up a little bit, and this isn't a fighter that's completely proven. Now, if this fight goes to the later rounds, there are some major question marks in regards to both fighters. I would be very interested to see who has the better gas tank. We got to see how that plays out. We talked about the layoff that Jimenez is coming in off of. Do I feel comfortable backing Jimenez as a minus 320? No, not really. That's not really a target that stands out to me blatantly. I don't see him being a big blue chip prospect and being a fighter that's deserving to be as big of a favorite as he currently is. We'll keep an eye on the line, but I do like Jimenez to get the early finish, but it could potentially come the other way, or this could be a fight that plays out closely and is a very entertaining fight for 15 minutes. But the final call will be Jimenez to get that first round KO. This one right here is one of my most anticipated fights of the event, and I'm a little surprised that Dana didn't throw this in the main event slot. I think that this is guaranteed fireworks, and we saw how last week's episode ended. It really doled things down to finish up the show. I think it's very important to finish an episode off in a big way. You could have 3 to 4 outstanding bouts early on, but if you have a very lackluster main event, it kind of bogs down how you looked at what you just saw here. And this is about where you pretty much are guaranteed fireworks, in my opinion, or I think that the finish is very likely. If you were to combine all of Josh Hokit's and Guilherme Uriel's professional bouts together, they've only left the first round one time. Okay, so if you understand what we're getting here, and just to talk about Hokit here for a second, I really like what we've seen from him. This is a fighter that has that Division I wrestling background. He's a true athlete. I believe he was recently on the 49ers practice squad, right? He has the football background. I mean, he brings in those real intangibles to the cage to have a lot of success in MMA. But we need to see more from him. But I mean, he really has some things going for him. He's trained a lot at Jackson Wink, so he's learning from some of the best there. Now, when you're talking about Uriel, this is a dangerous fighter. Okay, he has nasty Muay Thai skills. He goes out there, he looks to knock you out. You take a look at his lone loss. That was a fight where he did have a lot of success early. He was landing big strikes, and eventually he got caught, and he was brutally finished up against the cage. And we saw him slow down as that fight progressed. We saw him slow down majorly, and I think that's where Hokit can really take advantage of him. I think that Hokit would be smart to change levels, get this fight to start to progress, and then we would start to see Uriel slow down, and then we could see Hokit get the finish via ground and pound or set up a submission down on the mat when we see a gassed Uriel. But if you're Hokit, you don't really want to put yourself at danger and face that early onslaught from him, because Uriel's dangerous and he can knock you out there. And if Hokit just gasses him out, not only can he have success with the grappling, but if his cardio holds up, he has some skills with his hands. If we see an extremely gassed Uriel, then Hokit can go out there and showcase some of those abilities to us too. Maybe he gets a knockout on the feet there, and then in the second round or something like that, or at the very end of the first round, or maybe even to the third round if it goes there. But all signs are pointing towards Hokit's way. In my opinion, this is a fighter that I really like. I hope he gets the contract, and he has a great personality. You know, he's kind of like a polarizing figure. He would be a great addition to the heavyweight division. We need to see a lot more from him, and he will face some early danger in this match. So we're going to see how good his fight IQ is. We're going to see if he can stick to a game plan while still being able to deliver and put on a show for us. Because if he sticks to the game plan, it's not like this has to be a boring fight. It doesn't. But he needs to slow it down where he then can set up his own finish, which is what I see him doing. I'll say that he finishes this fight in the second round. via TKO. With the submission not being out of the realm at all. If we just see Uriel so gassed, maybe you see a rear naked choke or something like that. The grappling skills of Hokit are pretty polished up for a fighter that only has 5 professional fights. So, you know, it's just tough, man. Sub or TKO, I almost want to call the sub. So Hokit right now is right around a -426, give or take. He's a big favorite. This is one of those ones where it's like I like him a lot, but I want to be clear to you guys, just so you guys understand what we're talking about here. Uriel does have danger in his hands and in his striking. Okay, he has that Muay Thai background, and he goes out there and he looks to put it on his opponents, and that's exactly what he's going to do here. He's going to march out the gates and look to land heavy. So you're kind of going against that to kick this thing off. Do you want to have a high price tag there on Hokit trying to cash in there? I mean, I like what I see from him. This is kind of a tough decision to be made with the line being as high as it is. I wish we could have caught Hokit at a lower line here, because I really believe he will be able to go to the grappling and the wrestling, and will be able to drown Uriel here. It's a high line though. What are you going to do with it? You want to mix that in a parlay? If you really want to have action on this fight, I still would want to be on the Hokit side. I think that he proves to be legitimate. I think that he's just a much better athlete, and the gas tank of Uriel is brutal. I think his gas tank is absolutely brutal. This fight will not pass the second round, and I know you guys want a real official prediction here. I'm going to say that Hokit finishes this fight via sub, actually. I'm going to settle in with the sub pick in the second round. I'm going to say that Uriel is just so gassed out, and once Hokit's on top of him, he'll kind of give into like a rear naked choke or something like that. We got one of the more promising prospects on this episode here in Lightning Louis Lee Scott. He represents Manchester Top Team, and he's an extensive training partner of Lerone Murphy's. So obviously that carries a lot of weight. Murphy has been giving him very high praises, and Murphy's going to be fighting for the belt here in the near future. So what a positive sign that is. And then you go over to the tape, and Scott looks really sharp with his striking, comes in phenomenal shape. He switches stances constantly. He's hitting you with all types of attacks as far as the striking goes. And that's a positive sign here, because his opponent, Kaushik Saikumar, he has a striking background, right? And we've seen him show some flashes with his striking. Scott should get the better of those exchanges, in my opinion. And if we see a knockout or a finish, I am much more trustworthy in what I've seen from Scott. Okay, although I will point out that Saikumar did have a pretty nasty KO victory in his last fight against the Nigerian Aduma Asa. Scott has nasty boxing, but it's really his kicking game that has impressed me. The way that he constantly intertwines the kicking attack, whether he's working the legs, but more specifically, the way he's constantly throwing head kicks. He throws head kicks up there almost like he's just pumping the jab. You know what I mean? And if you don't have a tight guard, if your hands are not up, like we have seen in the past in some of his fights, you can get head kick KO'd, right? He has a nasty head kick KO highlight that you could pull up on YouTube. And Saikumar, like I said, he has a striking background. He looks pretty polished there. And then to go along with that, he trains with Ryan Hall out of that 50-50 gym. So maybe he could try to show us some tricks that he has up his sleeves, pulling guard, or working in the 50-50 attack, trying to pull a heel hook or something like that. I'm not banking on that. He really hasn't showcased too much there to us anyway. There's not a lot of submissions going on. I know he did pull off an arm triangle choke as of recently, but he's fighting very low level competition. I think that Scott is going to be a step ahead. I think that he's the more legitimate prospect here. Really, the only way that I see Scott losing this fight is if he makes a blatant error and we see Saikumar capitalize and get a highlight KO. Okay, I will just highlight in Saikumar's last fight, he did land a nasty knee in the clinch there and followed it up down to the mat. And his opponent, the Nigerian, was protesting the stoppage, and I thought that it was a warranted stoppage for that quick second there. You kind of saw him dazed, and he was out, even though he came back to after. So Saikumar shows some flashes with his striking, but let's be honest, man. We have a lot of question marks about fighters representing India. I mean, there really hasn't been any fighters to represent India in the UFC in a bright way. Okay, let's just be honest. So I mean, is Saikumar going to be that fighter? I just don't think it's going to happen. I think that we're going to see Scott go out here and be a fighter that represents England in a major way. I think that Scott's going to be another fighter to go to the heights of the game, or potentially he breaks into the top 15 down the line. I mean, this is a 25-year-old kid. Okay, I mean, there's that type of potential. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's going to do that, but he's a fighter that has that kind of potential. I think he'll prove to be the more well-rounded fighter, and I see him working his way to a unanimous decision. I'm going to say that he doesn't get the KO, but you'll see Saikumar fall into his back and getting kicked while he's down there, and you'll just see Scott switching stances and being the fighter that closes the distance as he's a little undersized, but he'll be the fighter that's landing much more cleanly. And I say he wins this fight 30 to 27. He dominates round to round, and you could still see him get a contract even though he doesn't get a KO. He doesn't necessarily have to get a KO to get a contract. If he goes out here and dominates, I think that he still can get a contract. And if we see a fighter have success with the grappling, I would say that we see Scott on top and landing ground and pound that down there as well. Now, Lightning Louis Lee Scott is a big time favorite, one of a couple big favorites on the card here, and I think it's warranted. All right, he's a minus 425. We're taking a look here, and I just think that it's warranted. I think that he's going to go out here and get his hand raised. Like I said, I think that there's major signs that he could be a fighter that proves to be a very warranted UFC caliber fighter that could look to make a run in this division. I mean, there's those types of traits going from. He's very aggressive, but I will say that he wins a decision, a dominant decision here. Hey, you guys, real quick, just want to say thanks for stopping by and checking out this episode. If you can all smash that like button, and if you're new here, smash that subscribe button. It really helps me out, guys. I appreciate you. The Team City Kickboxing product, Cam Rowston, looks to get redemption on the show. Of course, he got grinded out by Torres Finney the last time that he fought on Dana White's Contender Series. That fight took place about a year ago. Since taking that loss, he's won 3 fights in a row, getting 2 finishes in those fights. He pulled off a calf slicer and then also pulled off a rear naked choke. He's taken on Brandon Holmes here. Brandon Holmes, we've seen him battle over in CFFC and Fury. And this is a fighter that's very raw, in my opinion. When you're talking Holmes, there's definitely question marks in regards to his game. Okay, but he does bring in plus athleticism. And if he can keep this fight standing, he should be in a good light. All right. The one concern that I have for Holmes is I haven't seen him put on his back, and I wonder how he would look in a fight that goes to the later rounds and where there's extensive jiu-jitsu scrambles. Although I'm not very high on Rowston's overall jiu-jitsu, he has some skills there, and he potentially could take advantage of Holmes in that type of fight. With that being said, though, Rowston's wrestling, his offensive wrestling abilities are pretty lackluster. I really don't have any confidence that he's going to be able to get this fight down to the mat. Like, if it goes down there, great. I think that he can show some positive signs, but good luck getting it there. I feel more confident in Holmes's ability using his athleticism and his strength to avoid being taken down, where I think that he can get the better. Now, of course, you're probably thinking, oh, Rowston fights at a Team City Kickboxing. He has some striking abilities too, right? Against Finney, that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to keep that fight standing. Yeah, he shows some signs there, but he actually concerns me more in the feet. All right, he has some offensive abilities. He has that typical Team City Kickboxing stance. He has that left hand up high. He shows some abilities, but he gets touched up quite a bit. And I'm actually more concerned with this fight on the feet for him, with him eating a big explosive shot from Holmes. You take a look at Holmes, out of his 5 victories, he does have 3 KOs, and this is a young fighter. He's 28, but he's young in his fighting career. I know he has some amateur bouts there, but I think that we see progression from him, and it's possible that he lands a knockout here. Okay, maybe you see him just explode in and land something heavy. You know, Cam Rowston, if you guys didn't catch on, his nickname is the Battle Giraffe. And you guys know we have a lengthy history of talking about giraffe syndrome, and I've pointed at other fighters being the giraffe syndrome king. I think when you have a nickname like the Battle Giraffe, you kind of take the throne there. So if he leaves that head up there high, if he's not on his P's and Q's defensively, that Pez dispenser, as I like to say, can be pushed back. The knockout is potential for Holmes, but I'm actually going to say that Rowston digs deep. We've seen some toughness from him. I'm going to say that this fight does go to the final bell. And although we could say we have question marks about how Holmes will look late, I mean, out of his 5 professional fights, he's gone to the later rounds, even in some of those fights where he's gotten finishes. Okay, he's gotten late finishes. You look at his last fight against Zach Borrego, a fighter that fought on Dana White's Contender Series as well. He got that finish in the 3rd round. Okay, he's gone to a decision twice. He's gone to late to the 2nd round. So it's not like this is a front runner that just has all first round finishes. I think that he'll be okay if this fight goes there. And I just think, you know, signs for me are pointing towards the strong athlete taking this fight. I'm not I'm not really high on what I've been seeing from Cam, if I'm being quite honest. We take a look at the betting line. This fight is capped a little bit more closely than some of the other fights that we've been looking at. We've seen action coming in on Holmes, and I think that it's still reachable. If it goes any further, you're going to want to caution yourself. But I think that this is still somewhat of a reachable line when you take a look at this event as a whole. This is one that you can you could reach at, you can grab at. I'm just not very high on what I've seen from Cam. And also note, Cam will have that length advantage, if you will, if you consider that an advantage. But I just don't see him keeping this fight on the outside. I think that this gets kind of ugly. You see some clinch work going on here, and I'll take the more physically imposing fighter. I think that Holmes wins a decision. There's definitely question marks in regards to his game, training out of a smaller gym and really not having a lot of high level competition on his resume. But even then, my gut's telling me that he's still more trustworthy because we have a longer spreadsheet on Cam, and we have more information that points towards him being not all that. Okay, he's there to be hit. He gets touched up quite a bit, and I think that he's going to lose a decision here, and he'll go 0-2 on DWCS, and that will be all she wrote for old Giraffe King. And then to cap this episode off, we have a battle between Argentina and Brazil. The Argentinian Manuel Exposito takes on the Brazilian José Delano. And make no mistake, Delano is the fighter here that is set to showcase his abilities. The UFC wants to see him go out here and shine, and they want to see him get that UFC contract. I think that he is one of the more UFC ready fighters that we've seen come into the show. I'm very high on the striking ability that he possesses. He fights out of the southpaw stance. He'll break you down in a variety of ways. He's very physically fit. He has grappling and jiu-jitsu abilities. You could say we want to see a little bit more from him as far as his wrestling goes. He's really gone out there and has shined with his striking. And Exposito is a fighter that does look to change levels, but I think that his wrestling and grappling is low level, and any success that you've seen him really having there was against lower level fighters. Exposito, with his striking abilities, he throws loopy hooks, and I just don't think that he's going to find the mark there. I think Delano will be able to piece him up and pick him apart. If you're having any questions or concerns with the fact that Delano has 3 losses already before even signing with the UFC, I mean, he got finished by Gabriel Santos. Gabriel Santos, you guys just heard me raving about him going into that UFC 319 card, as I thought that he defeated Lerone Murphy. That was the one time where Murphy didn't look so good, although it was a competitive fight and it could have gone either way. But the point being is Santos is an animal. I think that kid is a young stud, and he's maturing, and you keep an eye on Santos. So losing to him in that fashion, getting finished in the third round, it's not really a red flag to me. And then the other 2 losses came very early in his career. I think they were his professional debut and then like his 3rd professional fight. So they were very early on, and he's came a long way. He's training at a Brazilian top team. I think that he's really refining his craft over there, and I think he's the truth. Okay, so I'm on him to win this fight. I think from here we just try to talk about how does he get the job done, and I'll very quickly just play devil's advocate. If Exposito is going to have success, if he's going to win this fight, I don't think he's going to be able to grind Delano out with his grappling. He's going to have to land, a nasty counter shot or just march forward, not even a counter shot, maybe just march forward and get lucky, if you will, and land the mark and shake things up, right? When you see big underdogs come in, or in a match like this where there's kind of a mismatch going on, when you see the dog come in and show up, they got to go in there and they got to just shake things up by landing a big strike. We've seen that happen on DWCS. I just don't see it happening here. I see Delano breaking him down, and I see Delano getting a knockout or TKO type stoppage here. We saw Exposito actually just finished up in his last loss, which was just 4 fights ago. He was knocked out there. The fight took place about a year and a half ago, and Delano is a much more dangerous opponent. He's been fighting over in the LFA, and he's been looking good. He's gonna get the stoppage here. So I'll say Delano gets a second round TKO stoppage. Exposito was finished in the second round in that previous loss that we just talked about. Now, Delano is coming into this fight off of 2 first-round finishes. He'll definitely be live for a first-round finish, but I'm going to say that the Argentinian hangs strong, and then you start to see him be more and more outclassed as the fight progresses, and he breaks down and he gets finished up in the second round. José Delano is one of a couple of massive favorites on this card. He opened up right around a -500. The line has dipped down a little bit. He's right around a -470 right now. And I think that him being as big of a favorite as he is warranted. And I would aim towards you mixing him up in a parlay or going somewhere going down that route more so than targeting the dog here. I'm just not really crazy with what I'm seeing from Exposito. I think he's a little undersized from as far as the length goes, and I really see Delano capitalizing on that. And I like what I've seen from Delano. I think that he ends up being a fighter that we're watching in the UFC. He gets a contract and all that. So, all right, guys, that's gonna wrap this one up. I didn't want to dive into it too much in the preview. I kind of wanted to jump into the fights, but for those of you guys that have hung around with me, so this is the first time I'm recording an episode on my new computer, which is giving me all these new capabilities. I really haven't implemented the stuff that I want to in the video. This is kind of just the same old video that I've been getting to you guys. Maybe you notice I'm not as choppy, or maybe you notice my audio sounds better or anything like that, but I haven't even started to begin into the refining of the videos here. But if anything was a little off, just understand that I just set up a whole new computer system, and I got some things going on here behind the scenes. All right, guys. So thanks for stopping by, and I cannot wait to show you guys a lot of the new stuff that's coming. And UFC Shanghai will be coming out here momentarily.
The teller. The teller. The teller.